Hi everyone, welcome back to Nick's Diecast. In today's video, I'll be showing you and reviewing this 1/18 scale 2001 Chrysler PT Cruiser made by Maisto, or Maisto, depending on how you want to pronounce their name. I got this model from eBay for around $28 in total, including shipping. Thought that was a good deal considering that Maisto is no longer making this particular model. They produced this 1/18 scale PT Cruiser model from around 2000 until either 2007 or 2008 or so. And the real-life PT Cruiser was built between 2000 and 2010. And although Maisto is no longer making this particular model, they did make it for quite some time, and it did come in a wide variety of different colors as well. As far as the colors that this model came in, aside from this really nice red that you see here, which was actually called Inferno Red Tinted Pearl Coat on the real car, Maisto also made this in another version of red that was called Cranberry. It also came in dark green, a limited edition dark blue version, black, silver, white, and several additional colors as well. You actually had two different versions with flames. There was a black version with green flames on the front and sides, and a blue version with silver and yellow flames. They also made a yellow version with fake wood grain on the sides, as well as a white version that had kind of like a cow pattern on it. So this may hold the record for the most paint colors offered on a 1/18 scale Maisto model. And as a result, you can see a lot of these when you do a search for them online. As far as the more rare colors go, I believe the metallic green version, which is kind of a lighter shade of green than the dark green version, and that blue version, which was called Patriot Blue, are the kind of more limited colors in terms of this model. As far as 1/18 scale PT Cruisers in general go, Maisto made, of course, the regular PT Cruiser that you see here in their 1/18 scale line. They also made it in 1/39th scale and 1/64th scale, and also 1/24th scale as well. But as far as other 1/18 scale PT Cruisers go, Maisto did make a version of the panel cruiser concept, which is basically a PT Cruiser panel van where you had metal instead of the rear windows. That one had different wheels and a slightly different interior compared to this production model. And Maisto also made a model of the Chrysler Pronto Cruiser concept, which is what kind of previewed what the PT Cruiser would be. I did a review of that one a little while back. And as far as other 1/18 scale PT Cruisers that are out there, aside from the ones that Maisto made, MotorMax made models of the PT Cruiser convertible concept, which I did a review on, and I also have, as well as the GT Cruiser concept from 2000. Those are really not that great of models in terms of the overall quality, but there are other, I guess, options out there in terms of PT Cruiser models in 1/18 scale in general. And ironically enough, the Auto Art brand also made 1/18 scale PT Cruisers. They did models of the GT Cruiser, the panel cruiser, and the regular production PT Cruiser, like the Maisto version. Although the regular production PT Cruiser model from their line was sold under Gate or Gateway Limited, which is what the brand was actually called before they changed their name in the early 2000s. I think in terms of overall quality and detail, the Maisto version of the production PT Cruiser fits sort of right in the middle in terms of the other models of PT Cruisers that are out there, if we count the concept versions like the GT Cruiser and the panel cruiser too. And there are some differences in terms of like the visual exterior details of those models, but they're all kind of similar. You know, they're all PT Cruisers or variations of PT Cruisers, basically. But we'll go ahead and take a look at the details of this Maisto version, and we'll see how it holds up to newer Maisto models and newer budget models in general, and how it holds up to other models of PT Cruisers that are out there in terms of 1/18 scale. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the details here. We'll begin up here at the front. I think Maisto did do a good job of capturing the overall look and shape of the PT Cruiser. It was definitely a more unusual vehicle from the 2000s. It's gotten, I think, a fair share of criticism over the years, but it definitely does stand out. And even on the roads now, compared to the other, crossover and SUV and hatchback vehicles that have been made in the past 20 or so years. It's definitely developed a reputation, I think, as one of the more ugly cars to come out of the 2000s, but I've always kind of liked the PT Cruiser. It was my first, favorite car when I was a little kid, and to this day, I still like it. So, A lot of you out there have, I think, differing opinions on this car, but it definitely, I think, had an impact on the automotive world. So that's just something to make a note of there. But again, Maisto did, I think, capture the overall look and shape of the car quite well. In the front here, you will see that they do a good job with the headlights here. There are small pegs that kind of hold the lenses in place, but they're kind of hard to see from a far distance. And there is that nice kind of black trim that you see surrounding the headlights. And Maisto, I think, did a good job with that as well. They do replicate the turn signals inside of the headlights as well. And I think the gap between the metal and plastic is nice and flush. And these don't feel, loose and whatnot when you touch them. They do a good job of the separately cast black plastic front bumper that you see here. On the real-life PT Cruiser, prior to 2003, all of the PT Cruisers came standard with the black bumpers. But then beginning in 2003, you could get it with the body-colored bumper. And then in 2006, they actually facelifted the PT Cruisers, so you lost this lower portion of the grille here, had more revised front bumpers and different shapes headlights as well. And they also made changes to the dashboard and the seats too. So this is based off the 2001 to 2005 PT Cruiser. And all of those 1/18 scale models that I mentioned are all based off those older versions of the PT Cruisers. So something else to keep in mind there. Maisto did a decent job with this front grille here. It's not really perforated. It's just kind of integrated into the metalwork of the front end. I think it is the overall accurate shape and everything, but I think some more detail, like maybe having a perforated separately cast plastic piece or the likes of that would have been, I think, a nice addition to the model for sure. They did do a good job of this Chrysler badge up here on the front of the hood. It's nicely embossed on there and not a sticker, which is nice to see. Decent job with these windshield wipers. I think the Gate version definitely has the better wipers, and Maisto also does a nice job with these side mirrors as well. They're nice and sturdy and are done in a matte finish of plastic that you would see on the real vehicle, which is nice to see. Paint quality, I would say, is quite well done for a Maisto model from the early 2000s. This red is a metallic finish, so it looks really nice in certain lighting. And Maisto, I think, once again, did offer a wide range of paint colors for this 1/18 scale model. I think it's about 50-50 in terms of which paints are metallic and which ones are not. But personally, I think the red version looks the best. And I think it's one of the more easy to find paint colors for this model when you search for it. So Maisto, I think, did a great job with the paint work. The Gate version, I think, definitely has a slightly better paint job, but the Maisto version, I think, does hold up quite well when you compare it side by side with the Gate version. Speaking of the version made by Gate, the Gate version does have separately cast door handles, whereas the Maisto version does not. These are kind of on the cheap side, where they're just kind of ingrained in the metalwork, and they're painted as silver instead of chrome. It would have been nice to see these done as separately cast plastic pieces, or perhaps maybe have some chrome paint instead of the silver paint, but, this is a Maisto model from 2000, so you're not going to see, more fine details like that. But from a far distance, it really does not look all that bad. You do have the PT Cruiser inscription on the front door here, and you will see that on the passenger side as well. Maisto, I think, did a good job with that. I think it is the right size and proportion to the rest of the car. And also taking a look at the side of the model, Maisto also did a great job with the wheels and tires on this PT Cruiser as well. This is based off a higher trimmed version of the PT Cruiser, and you can tell by the chrome wheels and the red inserts on the dashboard, like that. But Maisto really did a good job of capturing the overall look and shape of these wheels and tires. It almost looks like you can remove these individual lug nuts because they're so well molded. And the chrome wheels, I think, really do stand out quite a bit, which is cool to see. And Maisto also includes branded tires on the model as well. You may or may not find branded tires on the model, depending on which one you're getting. If the model was made prior to 2005, you'll definitely see the branded tires. But I have noticed that with Maisto PT Cruiser models made between 2000 and 2005, they may or may not have the branded tires. But mine happen to come with the branded tires, which is a very nice bonus. They are Bridgestones, which I believe were the standard tires on the real car, depending on which trim you ended up getting. So that is definitely cool to see that on this particular model. But keep in mind that you might not get the branded tires. And if the model that you're looking at does happen to be a newer version of the model, then it will probably not come with the branded tires. But I do like how Maisto was doing that back in the 2000s for sure. And taking a look at the back of the model, Maisto did a good job back here as well. The taillights are, I think, the right size and shape. There is kind of an obvious peg, almost like in the dead center of each taillight, but from like a far distance, you really can't see it all that much. But aside from that, the overall look and shape of the taillights is quite well done. And they do fit nice and flush with the metal portions of the model, which is nice to say. You got a nice Chrysler badge on the rear lift gate as well. And the molded in rear wiper. Would have been nice to see it as a separately cast on plastic piece, but at least they do include that wiper molded into the rear window back here. And then you have the separately cast plastic front bumper as well with either, I'm guessing these are either reverse lights or reflectors. I'm not totally sure on that, but the real car does have them, and Maisto does, I think, replicate them quite well on here. Then you have that Chrysler license plate down there as well. You do also have full steering and suspension as well. I forgot to mention that, which most Maisto models do have, which is really cool as a feature. Now, in terms of the opening features of the model, the hood, unfortunately, is sealed. Although on the panel cruiser model that Maisto made, the hood is not sealed, and there actually is an engine in the model. So I'm not really sure why they decided to not have the opening hood on the regular PT Cruiser, but that's kind of annoying, I think. Although that being said, you do have kind of a nice seamless look in the front of the model because the hood is sealed. On the version made by Gate, it does have the opening hood, but the engine detail on that model really is not all that great compared to the Maisto model. If anything, they're probably the exact same. You do, however, have the opening rear hatch, which is nice. Opens up like so. Not really a whole lot to see back here. You have kind of that rear liner back here, and then you have a rear privacy screen / shelf. On the real car, a really cool feature that the PT Cruiser had was you could actually lower this rear privacy screen / shelf into kind of like a little picnic table. You could lower it, and there was actually a leg that would unfold and I think attach either right on the bumper or right behind the bumper. And in some of the brochures that I saw of the 2001 PT Cruiser, there was like a little a picnic setup on there. So, you could easily take the car, tailgating and whatnot, and have your little picnic setup on the rear shelf. So that is really kind of cool that it had that versatile feature, I guess we'll say. But on here, this shelf does stay stationary, but it is actually a separately cast plastic piece, which is nice to see. But yeah, really not all that much to see back here aside from that. There's a decent texture back here too. And they actually do put a liner on the underside of the rear hatch, which Maisto was not always doing, but they did do on this model here. So cool touch for sure. You also have the opening doors on the model as well, at least the opening front doors. Now the MotorMax GT Cruiser does have the opening back doors, but the detail on that model and build quality is really not that great. So I'm not really as annoyed that the Maisto version has the sealed doors, because the MotorMax version just really is not all that great when you look at the details. Speaking of details, the Maisto version is very well detailed as far as the dashboard goes and the center stack. You can see that all the buttons are labeled and are painted on, which is very nice to see. And they also do a great job with the overall look and shape of the dashboard and the center stack as well. It does have the matching red accents that you would see if this were the real car, which was an option depending on which trim you picked out. There is the Sport inscription on this side here, and they are done in kind of a nice glossy red finish of plastic. The dashboard does have a nice texture to it as well, and it is the correct two-tone that you would see on the real car. Maisto also did a good job with the shape and look of the steering wheel as well as the gauge cluster. You do have the small Chrysler badge in the center of the steering wheel as well, which is a very cool touch. In terms of the door panels, Maisto did a good job with detailing those as well. They're actually made of two separate plastic pieces. You have the dark gray portion and the light gray portion. And in terms of the overall look and texture of the door panels, Maisto, I think, did a great job with those for sure. You also have the pattern next to the shifter too, which is a very cool touch. The pedals are nicely done as well. They're kind of hard to see from this side here, but Maisto did do a good job with the overall look and shape of those for sure. Maisto did a good job with the seats of the model as well. They have a nice kind of leather pattern to them, because you could get the optional leather seats on the real car depending on which trim you got. I think for the touring or the limited trims, which one of these two trims is what this model is based off of, you could get the optional leather seats. But Maisto did do an overall, I think, good job with the look and shape of these seats, and even have seat belt as well. Same goes for this back seat. It's kind of hard to see through this window here, but Maisto did a good job with the overall look and shape of the back seat of the model as well. So very cool to see. Now, there is just bare metal on the roof. Maisto didn't put in like a plastic headliner, but I guess you can always paint the underside of the roof black or gray to make it look like that it has a headliner. If this model were to be re-released today or just released in general, Maisto would probably include a headliner and probably some slight better details on the exterior of the car. But I think as far as a Maisto model from 2000 or 2001 goes, they really did a good job with the details and the build quality of the model for sure. As far as the undercarriage goes, not really a whole lot to see. It's just the standard, Maisto chrome exhaust system with some detail done in black plastic. So not really a whole lot to see aside from that, but a decent job, I would say, nonetheless. I think this is a solid model of the Chrysler PT Cruiser in 1/18 scale. I think Maisto did a solid job in terms of the overall details and just the overall build quality of the model for sure. And I think it does hold up quite well next to more recent releases from Maisto and more recently released budget 1/18 scale models in general. And once again, I think this model can be placed in the middle in terms of overall quality and details when you compare it to the other 1/18 scale PT Cruiser models that are out there. With that being said, I think as long as you're paying under like $35 or $40 for this model, I think you're getting a good deal for it, especially if the model happens to be in one of the more uncommon colors. But I think the red model personally is definitely my favorite for sure. So feel free to comment down below with your thoughts on this model or on the video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.